change that one. Hold on.
It's actually 12 o'clock on the nose, but we'll give it a minute or two. There's refreshments and so forth downstairs. Yeah. Actually, that makes it nice because that way you have treats. And I realize that this is the last program of the day. And so in some instances, I would feel like I was standing between you and lunch. And I always find that stressful, to stand between somebody and food. So I'm glad that you guys got a chance to get your snacks and so forth. So with that said, let me introduce myself. I'm Rebecca Trammell. I am a tenured professor at Stetson University College of Law. I am the law library director. I teach advanced legal research. I teach cyber law as a seminar. I've taught feminist jurisprudence, American legal history. And I've been doing this for a very long time. And I have a Ph.D. Ooh, yeah, I sometimes describe that, and there's a lot more truth in this than I like to admit, as a 10-year process. The actual writing of the dissertation, because I was just looking at something that I did in the process, started in 2012. And the title for my presentation is Legal Education plus Successful Learning equals Success in Practicing Law, or does it? And essentially, that's another way of stating my dissertation topic, which was specifically, they want it short and sweet, technology and legal research, what is taught and what is used in the practice of law. And the URL for the dissertation is there. It is available online, free download. I got my PhD at Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I liked it because it was a blended program, and I'm a huge fan of online learning, of all kinds of online learning. And this was a blended. About 3 years of the instruction included my going to campus twice a semester for like a Friday, Saturday, half-day, Sunday program. So I could fit that in with continuing to work. So, and I do have, it is published. They actually, I was about to say gave me, I paid for, let's be real. Okay, I paid for 2 paperback copies, brought one with me because I wanted to look at it. It's got little spots on it. Those are blood stains. Seriously, that's at least how it feels sometimes. So let me just hop in, and please, if you have questions as I go along, just, ask them. It's okay. Let me see if I get this right. I hope. Oh, good. Problem statement. Okay, dissertations need problem statements. And here's where I was coming from, and I still am. Legal education is failing to graduate practice-ready students. Legal research is an essential law practice skill, okay? I teach legal research. I'm a law librarian. I'm committed to legal research. And I think it is a very important skill. And the question then is, are law schools teaching adequate legal research? Yeah, are we? Well, that was the whole thing. So let's just keep going. Okay, dissertations need goals. Identify the legal research resources used by practicing attorneys. How do we know if we are teaching what attorneys use in practice unless we can identify what they are? And that might sound easy, but it's not as easy as you think, although I did come up with a way to do it. And then the next question is, determine what is being taught in ABA accredited law schools. I selected ABA accredited law schools because it's a specific body. You can identify them. And at the time that I did this, I was using 202 ABA accredited law schools, which is okay, that's what we had. I wasn't considering California, okay? When I got my law degree at the University of Denver. I just have to tell this story, it's pretty good. Maybe it's not. I got my law degree at the University of Denver, and one of the things that they told us consistently is do not cite California law. They are going to fall off the edge of the country if they aren't already there. So I wasn't too worried about California schools, which are, there's a number of them that are not ABA accredited. So you find out what attorneys are using in practice, determine what we're teaching at the law schools, and compare the two, what's used in practice with what's being taught at law schools. And then, determine if the law schools are teaching what's being used in practice. It sounds easy when you lay it out this way. By the way, just a little bit more backstory here. The PowerPoint that I'm using today is the one that I used to defend my dissertation. You have to defend your dissertation, and that was kind of fun, or not. Anyway, you have research questions, okay? And the first one, obviously, is what resources are attorneys using to practice law? And let me tell you that in the research that I did, there are a number of surveys that have been done to try to answer this question. And feel free to download my dissertation at any time because I get points for getting it downloaded. My dean likes it. In any event, what you're going to find is a lot of surveys, and I talk about them and I mention them, but there's sort of limits on all of them, and I don't know that there's any perfect information, but what I used was the ABA Legal Technology Survey. How many of you are familiar with that? Oh, good. Then you know what I'm talking about. This ABA Legal Technology Survey has been published for, they started doing it in 2000 easily. And they were actually doing kind of a different iteration of it before 2000. Starting in 2000, they limited it to practicing attorneys. So they weren't just surveying judges or people who weren't practicing law, but they limited it to practicing attorneys. And it is an excellent resource. And I'll talk a little bit more about this as I go along, but I was surprised as I was looking at my research to find almost no one has used this as a source for what attorneys are using in terms of resources to practice law. So, what research resources are being taught in law schools? Okay, this was fun. I used, and again, remember that I'm doing this as a dissertation. I have a committee that is helping me, or trying to help me, or we'll see. In any event, the committee wanted triangulation of data. So they wanted 3 different data points, if possible. So the first one that I used was the Allwood survey. It's the Association of Legal Writing Directors Legal Writing Institute survey. It is available online. They have been conducting this survey and putting it up online since 1996, 1997, I think. So, and it's up every year. So I used that survey, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. I also used a review of law school syllabi. And what I did, I actually managed to come up with, and I wrote it down just so I would not forget it, 195 syllabi from ABA accredited law schools. I got 52 syllabi that were legal research, and 143 that were research and writing. And I got these in a variety of ways, and they came from 2012, 13, and 14. And I found them, there are some depositories of syllabi. I emailed schools and instructors for syllabi. I searched the web, and I came up with these syllabi. And I'll talk a little bit more about the issues that go with syllabi as I go along. And then I put together a law school research survey. And that's a survey that I put together with consultation with other law library directors. I let them take a look at it, give me feedback on it, and so forth. Put this survey together, and it conformed to the required standards for validity and reliability, and sent it out to all of the ABA. First, obviously, I had to go through the internal review board to get it approved. Sent it out to all of the 202 ABA accredited schools using the Law Library Directors listserv. and I got great response rate on that survey. I actually had, I was only able to use 63% of the return surveys because there were some issues with some of them and the way they were done, but great return on that. So that's what I did. And then the question, is there a relationship between what's used in practice and what we're teaching in law schools? As part of this dissertation, I had to talk about legal education, of course. That goes with the whole piece. And legal education theory and practice debate. This was something interesting in doing a dissertation, because I have taught legal history. I've done a fair amount of research on different projects and stuff. And when I'm doing legal research or researching in the area of legal issues, I want primary legal authority. So if somebody back in 1898 happened to publish something that was relevant, I was citing it because I like primary authority. Well, I submitted my first idea paper in 2012, and I was skimming back through it looking at the dates of materials that I was citing. Oh, I had 1921. I had a couple of 1800s that I found. And I was told that a dissertation should never cite anything that is older than, say, 3 to 4 years. That's tricky. That's difficult. And I couldn't convince them to change their ideas. So what I did is a lot of searching for people that cited these things and put it in that way. Because you've got that theory-practice debate. I bet that many of you here remember the McCrate report when it came out, about 1992-93, which basically said we are not preparing our students to practice law. And there were actually a lot of things that happened earlier than that. You know, the ABA was established in 1878. And they issued their first standards in 1921. And it was at that point that the ABA moved from saying that law schools were approved because they met their standards to saying that law schools were accredited. And what the ABA was looking for in these standards, and there was a huge debate about it at the time, was requiring formal education to sit for the bar. This was a big deal. And it was that theory versus practice debate. They called it the John Marshall Lincoln debate, because Lincoln got his practice law by reading for law. And that was the whole point. Many attorneys in those days, and we're talking the late 1800s, early 1900s, were saying that you're going to disenfranchise people who could be great at practicing law because they can't afford law school. Gee, can't afford law school? Oh, I have to think about that. Anyway, there was this big legal education theory versus practice debate. It's actually still going on to some extent, and I'll talk a little bit more about the ABA standards in a second. And then I just told you about the ABA and legal education. And that in 1921, they established their first set of standards. And in 1952, the Department of Education recognized them as the agency to determine, to accredit law schools. That was 1952. And a lot of what happens as we go forward in terms of ABA legal education standards reflects pressure from the Department of Education. It just does. And one of the things, law school curriculum. So the law school curriculum really has changed not much in the last 100 years, until a little bit of change is going on right now. Hang on. There have really been very few empirical studies that look at legal education, that look at what we are teaching and how we are teaching it specifically. There are very few. The research that's out there has been anecdotal, descriptive, or very narrowly focused. It's been, I used this strategy in my class and boy, it worked well because I said it did. Or because my students liked it, or whatever. There's really just a lot of anecdotal literature out there. And it really is focused. I taught at my school one class in contracts. In 2008, and it's 2007-8, we had the recession, which changed the impetus, which established the impetus for change in legal education, because that really is what spurred the ABA to change their standards, because there were so many criticisms that the law schools were not graduating students that could practice law. And there were so many comments that the ABA is responsible. It's the ABA's fault. So why not blame the ABA? It works. So you also have in this mix legal research curriculum. Come on. Oops, I didn't do that right. There we go. You have the ABA standards that now require competency in legal analysis and reasoning, legal research, problem solving, communications in the legal context. And in a minute, I'll get to the fact that they have also added the requirements for assessment, and that these standards, the most recent revisions, 2014-15, are the ones that we have spent a lot of time here at the conference talking about, which is formative assessment. And how do we identify our course objectives, and then how do we assess that we've achieved them? All of this is going on. In terms of legal research, because remember that I'm advocating that we need to do a better job of teaching. Well, I am advocating that we need to do a better job of teaching legal research, because I don't think we've really done that great a job with it sometimes. There is no agreement in the literature, if you read it, on what to teach or how to teach legal research. You can get so many different ideas of how to do this, and I happen to think that it's a critical skill. We also have a print-online debate that is still continuing, believe it or not. An interesting debate on whether, at first it was, should we teach online at all? And now is it, do we need print at all? And really, the instruction, really, we don't have a cohesive focus for it, which is scary. And again, anecdotal research, surveys, minimal empirical research. So the methodology that I used for this. Again, what research resources are used by practicing attorneys and how are they accessed? So it was two pieces. It was what are attorneys using in practice, specific resources, and and they got to access them somehow. So what are the focus for me was what are the fee-based tools that they're using, and what free tools are they using. Now, we combined print and online here. So my dissertation really didn't try to separate out print versus online. It's just what the heck are they using, whatever format it's in, and how are they getting to it if they're accessing it online. So what we did is, what I did, is I took the data from the ABA Legal Technology Survey. And essentially the ABA Technology Survey I used, the one that I used for my survey, because when I was doing it was 2013. 2014 and 15 are out now, and I'll talk more about those in a minute. Anyway, basically the attorneys identified 17 specific sources or resources. For example, legal forms, legal news, state statutes, their state case law, their state, 17 of these. They also identified 10 fee-based resources that they used. This will come as a complete and total shock to the world that Westlaw was first. Might not be such a shock. Okay, so 10. Westlaw was first, followed by Lexis, Bloomberg was at the bottom. They also identified 6 free sources that were used. Top of the list, anybody got an idea? Google. Of course, thank you. And sadly enough, at the bottom of the list, Cornell Legal Information Institute, which I thought was too bad. But so what we did is we determined the frequencies and percentages for these data, but that's not how, that's not the empirical research piece or the essence of it. It's important. So we did frequencies and percentages, okay? Then in terms of what research resources and access strategies are taught in law schools, we used the 3 data sources. We used Allwood, we used the syllabi, and the legal research survey that I did, and determined frequencies and percentages for all of this data. And then we applied, you're gonna love this, it was my favorite piece of this whole dissertation, it was applying the chi-square test of significance to the data. Here you go. I know you've been waiting for this. This is the chi-square test of significance, and it's the formula that's used to determine this. Because you don't just compare frequencies and percentages and say, aha, they're higher here and they're lower here. No, is there a significance? Is there a degree of difference that creates a significance in one is higher or lower than the other? And chi-square test is the one to use. And so that chi-square test does indicate whether there is statistical differences or significance between the data sets. And the tables, if you ever want to get my dissertation, the tables indicate all of the math, set out all of the pieces, and I went over this fairly quickly when I was doing my dissertation defense, because I hired a statistician to help me with this. I will admit it honestly. Just about everybody that I know that does a dissertation that requires some really significant calculations hires somebody for help. So I admit it firmly. So the methodology. Again, the ABA Technology Survey provided the benchmark data. It provided the 17 types of resources, the 10 specific fee-based access services, and the 6 free, okay? So it was the benchmark data. I don't have, how many of you have seen the Allwood survey? Have you taken a look at it online? A couple. It is the Legal Writing Institute survey, okay? And the data, the questions that they asked did not match most of the benchmark data. The only data that we were able to use it for was free and fee, as in free access resources and fee access resources. And I do suggest that you take a look at the survey because their focus, there are a couple of research questions there, but the Legal Writing Institute focus is on status, salary, and issues like that. And that's understandable. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but it was in 2001, 2002 that the ABA, in reviewing and changing standards, which they've done consistently through the years, added a legal writing component to essential skills. And that legal writing component resulted in an expansion of legal writing instruction, and that legal writing instruction frequently became legal research and writing. Legal research and writing combined together. That is why I mentioned the syllabi that I used. That's why I had more R&W, or research and writing syllabi, than I had just legal research syllabi. It just was. So the data didn't quite match. I'll show you what we did with it. And the syllabi, it matched because I used the 17 points in asking if they were being taught in setting up that survey, as well as the free and fee. So I knew I was going to get some hits, but the question was, what kind of data would I get? Oh, the syllabi. I'm sorry, I went a little fast. I told you that the law school survey gave me a lot of data because it matched nicely. The syllabi, and by the way, in the dissertation, I explain in detail the difficulties in using syllabi as some kind of benchmark, because you don't know for sure if the instructor changed the syllabi halfway along and added stuff in. You don't know how they taught what they did teach. You don't know if they expanded. All you had was just the syllabi. So I do use that caveat consistently in explaining, hey guys, this is not, maybe the best stuff, but here's what I got. And then, as I said, the law school legal research survey. So, benchmark data. The ABA legal technology survey indicated legal news was one of the sources that was used most frequently, and jury verdict information the least frequently, which I thought was interesting. It's not bad, it was interesting. Of the 6 free online tools, we've already said this, Google most frequently, Cornell least frequently. That's too bad. And of the 10 fee-based, Westlaw first and Bloomberg Law last. I kind of jumped ahead on that. So, no, that is a difficulty with the ABA data. They don't tell you why. It just is the way their survey respondents answered the question.
They just pick on 6. I mean, if they pick 10.
Yes.
I think final just beat them out.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. And I don't know about those of you that teach legal research, but I spend a fair amount of time teaching Cornell and showing my students about it. And almost consistently across the board, they go, gee, I never heard of it, or I only used it for X. I only used it for the
supplement.
The what?
The supplement for like CIF Pro or the
right. Or the they have the encyclopedia, the WEX.
Oh.
Okay.
It's online. Yeah.
It is. It's online.
It was Google search first. State Bar Association offers a lot of stuff, all being combined up. Government websites, they're all combined up. It's a lot of stuff. Then Fine Law, my old company. And then Cornell. And then other. Which
Yeah.
was less than everyone.
Right.
Mostly Cornell.
Yeah. And I just. It actually was on the first screen. It'll be on the last screen. The site for my dissertation, is that what you asked me? Okay.
If you search your name dissertation, will show up.
Yeah, it does.
Rebecca Trammell.
Yeah, Rebecca Trammell, dissertation, Nova. And the site that I gave you is Nova. It also is on ProQuest dissertations. Isn't that fun? Which I think is kind of cool. I really do. So what is taught in law schools? Okay, I said Allwood, that we were limited to comparing online free and fee-based access tools, as I explained. For syllabi, 5 benchmarks that remember I said the ABA had 17, 5 of those were not listed in any syllabi as being taught. And the online free and fee-based tools compared, so they were listed. Both in the syllabi and they match the ABA. Legal research survey, all 17 benchmark research resources were included, and free and fee-based access tools were included. In other words, there were hits on all of these, okay? But remember that you're looking at the chi-square test of significance. So, taught versus what's used in practice. Allwood versus used in practice. This is the fun part. Attorneys are using more free and fee access tools than what is being taught as indicated in the, I call it the Allwood survey. Okay, so we should be teaching more, or at least those that respond to the Legal Writing Institute survey. That's what you get. Syllabi. Attorneys use 12 resources and free and fee access tools more than what is indicated. Remember, we're talking about the comparison of the ABA to what the syllabi assessment indicates, okay? And so you're looking at the significance of difference. And legal research survey, the one that, of all the law schools, the one that I put together. Attorneys use 10 resources and more fee-based access tools than are being taught. There's sufficient free online instruction being provided, at least according to the statistics. So what's the conclusion? Law schools are not teaching sufficient legal research skills to graduate students who are ready to practice law, if you use this data. Now, I didn't stop there. You can't stop there. They won't let you stop there. Trust me. I had to go on. And basically, other results, essentially legal writing is emphasized over legal research. I mean, that is so apparent if you take a look at the Legal Writing Institute surveys, and they're online. You can look at them. It's just legal writing is being emphasized more than legal research. 10 of the 17 practice areas lack adequate instruction. And these 10 legal forms, legal news sources, public records, talking docket searching here, state administration, your state and other states, state legislation, other states, state case law, other states, information about judges, jury verdict information, and experts, expert witnesses. We're just not covering those. And we're just not doing enough of it. More instruction is needed in the use of both free and fee-based online access tools. Recommendations. You have to do recommendations. It's required. We need further research. I used the 2013 ABA Legal Technology Survey. As I said, the 14 and 15 are out. I would like to do this same project with the data from the 14th and 15th. And I'd like to update data from the law schools and the source of what we're teaching. Has it changed with, and I think it's going to be especially interesting to see if we take a look at changes that occur after the full implementation of the ABA's requirement for assessment, for objectives and assessment. Because we're just seeing it now. Stetson just had our site visit last year, and we weren't really required to have those in place. But the visits that are coming up now are, but the ABA is giving us a little bit of time to roll this out. So I think it would be really, really, really good to see what impact this has. The other thing, the ABA data, I use the data set for all attorneys, okay? But the ABA breaks out their data by size of practice, so you get solo, small firm, medium firm, law firm, large firm. And they break it out very nicely. I would like to break it out and do a survey to see, because I don't know about your law schools, but an awful lot of our students now, especially after that 2007-8 recession, by the way, I had a huge debate with my committee on what date to put in the syllabus. Should I use 2007 or 2008? You pick a date. It's right in there someplace. In any event, the question is, so many of our students now are going into solo practice or very small firms, a couple of them getting together. So how does that impact what kind of information they need, and can we break that out from the ABA Technology Survey? I think that would be good. Also, I would like to compare the AALL research competency standards. And AALL has come out with really good competency standards for legal research. That was 2013 or 2014. Yeah, but the competency standards from AALL. I'd like to compare those to both to the ABA, Legal Technology Survey, but also to what we're teaching in law school. I think that would be really, really, really cool. And questions and comments, and I wanted you to see this slide because this is my committee. And Dean Emeritus and Professor of Law, Joe Harbaugh, was on my committee. He's from Nova Southeastern. And I was so glad that he was willing to serve on the committee, and it was so helpful to the committee in giving me some latitude on what I could cite and what kind of resources I could use for this project. And I would love to answer questions. I kind of went through that kind of fast, didn't I? Yeah.
Yeah, after you go into the process.
I am teaching, because I'm teaching advanced legal research, I am teaching, I'm emphasizing docket, using, I'm telling them about PACER, but we also subscribe to Bloomberg Law, and I like the Bloomberg Law docket search better than PACER by far, so I'm emphasizing that. I am requiring my students, I've always done this, but I've kicked it up, I'm requiring them to do assignments where they have to use each of the big three, Lexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg, because you don't know what you're going to get in practice. I'm adding in more instruction. These are Florida students, and Florida uses the Florida bar uses fast case. So I'm adding in fast case instruction. And we subscribe to it on the law school database so that they can get access to it. I go through and explain as a member of the Florida bar, you have free access to this. And I give them the chart, and then for an additional, I think it's like $175 a year, you get the full access. So I'm taking them into that legal forms. I am spending Joe Harbaugh saw that and he said, that's appalling, that we are not adequately talking to our students about legal forms. And I certainly think that legal forms can, because I've also been doing some A2J things with hot docs and the guided interviews, and certainly legal forms are something that are terribly important. So I've tried to add those things in and to make a point, because the two other areas that really disturbed me were that we're not adequately covering state administrative law in our states. And we have to know in practice, depends on where your students practice and so forth, but generally they're going to hit administrative law. It is one of the most essential areas of law, federal or state. They should have an idea of how their state works. And then what I do is come up with different sources that will give them links to other states. So if they get hit with another state, they at least have sort of a start at where to go. Also, case law and statutes in other states, because it's hard to cover all this. But those are the pieces that I've added. Also, emphasizing, and I don't think they get enough of this, emphasizing the ability to find jury verdicts, the recommended jury verdicts, that kind of thing, and how they can be used, and why they're important. Because you should start your complaint by knowing what you have to prove, and sort of wend your way through with it. Those are the things that I focused on the most. Also, there are a couple of, I've found a couple of really good, quick little webcasts where attorneys are talking about the importance of legal research or the things that they really need to do, that kind of thing. So I'm throwing those in. I'm also asking for volunteers, if any, because I basically teach my research online, advanced legal research online. So I'm asking for volunteer attorneys that will come in and do a 5-minute shtick or a 3-minute shtick on the importance of legal research and what you should know. Because I'm trying to put it in context. It's not enough just to say, here, you got to know this. They need to see a context for it. So that's what I do. sure. Hang on, they gave me this thing. Now, there you go. You're welcome. And it's 17 practice areas, 10 out of 17. And the chi-square test of significance says, just not teaching as much. And if you look at it, and if you teach advanced legal research, yeah, I agreed with them. Also, these are things that I'm hoping as we do more assessment with the ABA, more objectives, these are things that could be and should be included in other doctrinal classes. I know that we have a Civ Pro class at Stetson that does this because it's a team of a doctrinal member of our faculty and an adjunct who works in this area. He comes in and takes the students through a tour of the library, pointing out foreign books. I do, for my advanced legal research, I do a week of a lecture on transactional resources and litigation resources, and I'm actually showing them film videos, showing them the books. So I'm showing them things like proof of facts, Amjur trials, or Amjur pleading in practice, and then I'm showing them Florida, because we've got Florida pleading in practice. We've got Florida jurisprudence forms, that kind of thing. So I'm really trying to kick that in. But, so that's what I'm doing. Any other questions? Well, I really, really, really appreciate, hang on, I'm going to jump to that last slide again. Oops, back. Oh, I forgot to put that one up, sorry about that. I knew I had another one. Anyway, I appreciate your coming to this meeting right before lunch and listening to me talk about my dissertation. I jokingly, as I said, say it took 10 years. It actually took more, about 4 years to write, because you have no idea how many times I had to write it, and then rewrite it again, and then rewrite it 3 more times. But and I was going to say something else I want to throw out there, that I've only seen the ABA Legal Technology Survey used once before in an empirical study, and it was one that Michelle Wu and Lee did, and essentially it was an empirical study of the research and critical evaluation skills of law students. She took the same 17 items that I did and surveyed law students to see what they used, what kind of research tools they used, the law students, across several law schools. And that's interesting, but I wanted to know what we're teaching. Because knowing what they use, okay, I'm not sure how they figured that one out, but I wanted to know what they were teaching. And I've only heard the survey mentioned one other time, just in passing, that it exists. And I've got cool kinds of information in the dissertation, research studies, and all kinds of things, because you have to cite everything. Also, I learned APA citation format. Oh my God. You think Blue Book is bad? Oh, no. Oh, no. Yeah. I am not too proud to admit that I hired an editor to check my APA style. I did. I had the statistician and an APA style editor. I needed it. But I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I kept on. I'm glad I finished. I actually had to finish that year because otherwise I was running out of time. So I had to do it. Anyway, thank you all for coming. If you have questions, you've got my email. Let me know. Thank you. And you get to lunch early. Oh, that's true, I forgot. I forgot that, and I was gonna go listen to him anyway.
Well, actually, I don't know if John's gonna give us the lunch before we disappear, after we disappear.
It's hard to say, knowing John.
Great job, Rebecca.
Oh, thanks, thanks for coming, Alex, I appreciate it. So is everybody in write a dissertation now?
You know, it would be interesting, but I'm not sure I wanted to.
I gotta tell you, it was more work than I expected.
Well, and I think also, I think you're right. That the law stuff is just different.
It is.
And so people are
And-
expecting more social science. I would say.
There's, one of the, it's older now, but it is empirical, a huge book, just a summary of all of them. I mean, it's a big volume, and it
Well,
sounds,
and also it was interesting what you said with Michelle did.
yeah, she did. Do you remember that?
Boy, I don't.
Well,
I should go back and look at it.
It's, I used it, let's see. I was at the point of saying I was the only one that had ever used it, and she came out with it. Oh my God, but then I read it, you know. And she's in my,
Oh, okay, I can look up Michelle.
2012.
Okay.
An empirical study on the research and critical evaluation skills of law students. It was in LRSQ
Oh, okay.
in 2012.
Educational technology. Online because of
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, so you're sort of an advocate of online, and
Oh,
I've
God,
had
yes.
both kind of. But they had taken it a couple of years. So you know, sort of
So-
my.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I guess any suggestions for as I'm evaluating programs, like right now I'm evaluating Purdue and
My suggestions are, obviously, first look at the program, get all the details that you can, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. See, talk to some students that graduated from the program or are currently in the program. And if the program is any good, I put the mouse back.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I returned the mouse. If the, that are in it or have graduated,
okay.
and ask them what were the pluses and minuses, okay? I like online education.